rapid fire stories I've consumed. The first book I want to talk about is this one. It is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I basically cried my way through this. It's about this cafe that allows you to travel to the past. It's sort of like a magical realism type book. Like, it left me feeling very hopeful. The book I read after that was The Alchemist. I was quite disappointed by this. The Alchemist is the story of a shepherd boy from the Spanish region of Andalusia who journeys to the exotic markets of North Africa and then into the Egyptian desert where a fateful encounter with the alchemist awaits him. This book is all about like trust in the universe and like the universe will take care of you and like see the signs and stuff like that. And honestly, I am someone that's really into that kind of stuff, so I expected to like this a lot more than I did. I think just the way it was told, it was very in your face. There wasn't a lot of nuance and it felt overall really preachy to me. After that, I read Treasure Island, a fun adventure story about pirates. Jim Hawkins, Long John Silver, you know the drill. This was really fun. It was a lot more slow-paced than I thought it would be. At times, I found myself a little bit bored, but I did think that the writing was really beautiful and imaginative. I'm happy that I finally read it because I do really like pirate stories. After that, around Halloween time, I read The Phantom of the Opera. It's a spooky story about a haunted opera house. I think a lot of people know the story. I was a big fan of how atmospheric the writing was. It really draws you in immediately. I loved the spooky, like the mystery of it, because I didn't know how this book ended. I was really drawn to the mystery of it through the entire thing, but I didn't really like the ending, like the last part of the book. It kind of lost me. After that book, I read a tiny little book called Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is a story of a woman in her 30s who has always worked at a convenience store. It's about how the people around her are really not okay with her working at a convenience store. They're all just like wondering when she's gonna get a husband, or like if she's gonna like do something else with her career. Like basically they're kind of like, what are you doing? This book talks about society and societal pressures that are put onto people, how society really loves putting people in certain boxes, and if you don't fit any certain box, like people just can't comprehend that. I really like this. It's a tiny book, but it's so beautiful. The next book I read on my iPad, so I can't show you, but it's Piranesi. This book, oh wow. I'm sure you know what this is about because so many people have raved about this book. I think about this book still so much. I think it's so beautiful. It's about this person who lives in a house, and this house is made up of these big halls full of statues, halls upon statues upon statues. The house contains the ocean, and it's very weird and mysterious, and like for most of the book you have no idea what's really going on. There's this mystery that unfolds, and you really I can't say anything more. I adored the writing in this. I thought it was so beautiful. I loved our main character. I loved sort of the academic side of this. This was a 5-star book for me. It was so good. I also recently finished Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince for like, I don't know, like the 7th time. I've been reading it on audiobook. I thought it was great, as per usual. I guess I do have to put like a little bit of a note here that I 100% disagree with everything that J.K. Rowling's doing at the moment. I'm not going to go into depth about it. I don't support this woman. Then I read another book on my iPad. I read The Bear and the Nightingale. This is part of a series. It's sort of based on Russian folk tales and Russian folklore, Russian fairy tales type of thing. I think this is the type of book that you should enjoy slowly. I loved how atmospheric it was to read, and I loved the mystery aspect of it as well. Like the entire time they're sort of teasing this mystery. It's perfect for the cold winter months, but also I think a good scary read for Halloween. I think in some ways I would have preferred a little bit more explanation, but of course it is the first book in a series, so maybe there will be more explanation, but I felt like there was a lot left unexplained to me, and that like frustrated me a little bit. The next book I read is The Yellow Wallpaper. Yeah, it's a creepy little short story about a woman in, I believe, the 19th century who gets locked up in her room because she needs to get better. She's a little ill or whatever, and back in those days they were like, oh, just like stay in your room, don't talk to anyone, and you'll just get better. And so she does, and she writes these journal entries, and you just kind of, over the really short span of time, see how she gradually just loses her mind. It's really creepy. Like, I was really genuinely freaked out by this story. I think it does its job really, really well. After that, I read another tiny book. I read The Little Prince, which is a book that somehow I had never read before. This book amazed me. It was great. I'm so mad I never read it before. It's tiny, but so poignant. I highlighted like half of this book. It's about this pilot who crashes his plane, and while he's fixing his plane, this little prince comes up to him. He learns about the Little Prince. Basically, these are my favorite types of books. It's a classic for a reason. It's so good. Speaking of children's books, I also read Green Eggs and Ham because I was like, I need to get my reading goal, and I have like 2 days left. Green Eggs and Ham is great. Honestly, this was my first Dr. Seuss book ever. I really, really loved the lyricism. Is that a word? I loved how it read like a song. It was just very like pleasing to read. Not aesthetically pleasing, but like lyrically pleasing. And in the last book, A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. This is an essay that she wrote about why, if you are a female and you are a writer, you need 2 things. She says you need money and you need a room of your own. I have to say, this one I was a little bit meh about. Like, it was good and I got her point, but I don't know, I expected it to like hit me more, but maybe it's not supposed to do that because it's an essay. I don't know. That was a lot of books to get through, and I haven't even started on the movies and the TV shows. This is okay. I'm gonna go very, very fast for the next couple things. Let's do movies. I watched Mononoke Hime. This is now my favorite Ghibli movie. If you really, really love nature, you like nature more than you like humans, I think you will like this movie. I loved the mystery of the forest and the creatures. I loved how every character was nuanced, not black and white. There was no clear villain. Another movie I watched with my husband was The Old Ways. This is a horror movie it's about a journalist of Mexican origin who travels to her ancestral home in Veracruz to investigate a story of sorcery and healing. There she is kidnapped by a group of locals who claim she is the devil incarnated. Yeah, American goes to an exotic place, doesn't respect the culture, and, you know, gets to pay the price for it. It's one of those movies. This was pretty bad, but I've seen worse movies in this genre. Then I also watched Practical Magic. This is a witch movie with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. This is one of those movies that's like casually witchy. I really wish there were more movies like this. It's basically 2 witch sisters raised by their eccentric aunts in a small town, and they face close-minded prejudice and a curse which threatens them to prevent them ever finding lasting love. This had a really good soundtrack, but the pacing was really weird, and I couldn't really find the tone that this movie was trying to get, but I did still really like it. But I think that's mostly because I love witch movies and I love Sandra Bullock. So another casually witchy movie that I watched was The Craft. This is about like some high school girls that get into like kind of like a Wiccan type of vibe, and they try to do like rituals and shit. I thought the plot was super messy. I thought it's like all over like a really, really messy movie, but I really still loved the vibes, and I will probably watch it again. I don't know, the vibes were just right, I guess. Also, The Craft gets pretty dark. Got a lot darker than I thought it would be. Then I watched the Paris Hilton documentary. I watched This Is Paris. I love Paris Hilton. I've loved her since I was a teenager. I used to watch The Simple Life on repeat, and it was really nice to see her telling her story rather than the media telling her story, because that's how it's always been. So that was really cool. The next movie I watched was Liar Liar. It's another Jim Carrey movie. I think Liar Liar is just a classic in its genre, and by genre I mean like family movie in which the dad is too much obsessed with his work and he needs to learn the importance of family. You know the ones. I think this is a classic. I think it's great. I love Jim Carrey in it. I will rewatch this movie to death. Then I watched Bo Burnham's Inside. This was great. It made me laugh, but more importantly, it made me cry. I still listen to some of these songs. What's the one? Put your hands up. Put your fucking hands up. That's my favorite one. It like destroys me a little bit. Welcome to the Internet's really good too. He just makes some really good points that I think resonate with a lot of people these days. The next thing I watched was a short film with Dylan Sprouse called Daddy. I just randomly watched it on YouTube and I just loved it. I thought it was so beautiful. It's basically about a sugar baby and his daddy. And it's a very, very short little film, but it's so beautiful in how nuanced it is. With so little time, it managed to convey so much. It's really good. I also watched Cruella, the new Disney adaptation. This one tells the story of how Cruella became Cruella de Vil. What I liked about this was the fashion, seeing all the fashion. That was just so exciting for me. I was obsessed with like all of that. But everything else I found really messy. I just feel like they could have done so much better. I feel like the story of Cruella de Vil could have been incredible, and I don't know, I think it's a missed opportunity. I also watched 101 Dalmatians, the original animated movie. That one, I think, I don't know, if you like dogs, it's a great movie. I don't think it's Disney's best, but it's cute. For Halloween, I watched Insidious, which is like supposedly one of the best modern horror movies. And I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed. Also, it wasn't bad, but it was just like very basic. I don't know. I really expected more. Then I watched a couple of short movies by Gobelin. Is that how you pronounce it? I watched Louise, which is about sort of the messed up side of the ballet industry. I thought this one was okay, but it didn't like grab me as much as I wanted it to. Then the second one I watched by Gobelin I thought was a lot better. It's called Best Friend, and that one is about a world in which people can have fake virtual friends, and it's about this guy who kind of loses himself in that. And I thought with how short it was, it really managed to tell a story brilliantly. Because it's quite a complex thing they were trying to tell, I think. And I was just in it, and I thought it was great. And the ending of that one was incredible. The next one I watched was His House. This is a horror movie about refugees that arrive in the UK. They are put into housing. It's about them struggling to adapt to their new life. This movie haunted me after I watched it. I thought it was incredible. I loved that I didn't know what was going on throughout like most of the movie. It was very, very surreal, but at the same time, the conflict and trauma of these people was very real, and like, ooh, this movie just like, ooh, we're almost there. We're almost there. For Christmas, I watched The Princess Switch 2 and 3 because I already watched the first one. I thought the first Princess Switch was like alright. It was kind of cute, I thought, plus I really like Vanessa Hudgens. But number 2 and number 3, they're just not it. I think these movies are great to watch with your friends at a party because they're completely ridiculous. It's basically Vanessa Hudgens plays 2 people at the same time, and then in the second and the third she plays 3 people, and they're like switching places, you know, Princess Switch, you get it. A good movie I watched just like last week was Paddington 2. I finally watched Paddington 2. I love Paddington 1. Paddington 2, same deal. Just, it's the perfect movie. I just think Paddington is like, they're like the perfect Hufflepuff movies. Nothing negative to say about Paddington 2. It was great. It was so silly and funny. This movie has a lot of fun with itself, and I just love that. There's so much joy and happiness radiating from this movie. Also, Hugh Grant. Great casting. Then I watched Mitchells vs. the Machines. I really, really liked this movie as well. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is family road trip movie, basically the Goofy movie, but like made for the 2020s. Probably the funniest movie I've seen this year, but at the same time it had so much heart. I also loved the animation style. It was so good. It was so good. I also watched Into the Spider-Verse for the first time. Brilliant movie. My favorite superhero movie now. I'm not a very superhero movie kind of gal, but this one was just great. That scene where he finally like gets into his powers is so powerful. I loved it. What else did I watch? I think the final movie I have to talk about is Encanto. That's the one I watched on New Year's. I have been obsessed with it since I watched it. Can't stop singing the songs. Encanto, I think, is one of Disney's best films in a very long time. Oh, it's better than Moana, better than Frozen. I think it's so refreshing to have a movie that is like, it's small scale and has so much heart, and it has such a big cast, but you like, every character gets to shine and has their moment, and you care about every single character. And because it's not a super big scale movie, like for example Raya, everything seems a lot more fleshed out and you just care so much. And I just think Encanto is amazing, and that is the final movie that I watched this year. Whew! I have now talked about everything except for all the TV shows. I think I'm just gonna go even faster for those ones. Okay, first thing, June Origins. This is the origin story for The Grudge. This is a Japanese TV show. I thought this was disappointing. I thought it was very confusing. I don't recommend June Origins. Then I watched Euphoria with Zendaya, who like is another one of those people that I just really, really love. This was very hard to watch because it was just like mentally too hard for me to watch. It is about a group of high school students that experience sex, drugs, rock and roll. A lot of people say it's not realistic, but here's the thing. Even though at times it's so ridiculous, at other times it was so relatable that I would just ugly cry. So in the end, Euphoria is really important to me. Then of course I watched Squid Game. I thought it was great, like everybody else thought it was great. I think the ending is disappointing, but aside from that, I think it's great. I watched Sex Education season 3. I really liked it. I didn't like it as much as the first 2 seasons, but I still really liked it, and I still want to see more because I'm kind of obsessed with this world and these characters. I watched like 3 episodes of Mystic Pop-Up Bar. That's another Korean drama. All the main characters were just so like dumb that I was just like, I just gave up on it. I don't recommend it. Then I watched Niji Project, which is a reality TV show where JYP is creating a new girl group meant to promote in Japan. That was really fun to watch. I love these types of shows. I thought it was great. And yeah, oh my god, that's it. I think that's it. So yeah, this was just like a rapid fire round of everything that I've been watching and reading. I don't think anybody aside from myself thinks this is interesting. And maybe my little brother. Hey Lenny, if you're watching. I felt like I had to do it. Now I've talked about everything. Otherwise it wouldn't have been complete. So with that being said, I hope your 2021 wasn't too crappy, and I hope 2022 is gonna be great. I will be making another video soon where I talk about my favorite books, my favorite TV shows, my favorite movies of the year. Yeah, and until then, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!